For years, studios have taken beloved video game franchises and turned them into one of two things: the good and the bad. All of the failed movies that haunt the box office have one thing in common: that at one point or another they were meant to be franchised. In 2024, Hollywood got its hands on yet another victim with the release of Borderlands. Another video game franchise taken to the big screen that fell short to what the video game was and felt like. The movie feels unfinished and bland, with pieces of the story that feel out of place and jokes that just miss their mark. Today, I will be discussing the timeline of events leading a beloved video game franchise to turn into another of Hollywood's lifeless adaptations. This is how the Borderlands film was bound to be a box office bomb from day one. Our story begins in 2011, when Randy Pitchford, CEO of Gearbox Software, begins discussions with Avi and Ari Arad of Arad Productions about bringing Borderlands to the big screen. Pitchford's enthusiasm for the idea of an adaptation solidified after the release of the fifth installment of the franchise, Tales from the Borderlands. Developed by Telltale Games, this version of Borderlands took the story in a different direction. This time, made with a narrative-driven story instead of the first-person shooter we all know. This, paired with the addition of it being a spin-off of the main game, really showed the franchise's world-building and storytelling potential. The game's first episode opened to great reviews, which, in turn, served as fuel for Pitchford to think that what he later called to be a Borderlands cinematic universe could become reality in the near future. Around 4 years later, by May of 2015, Lee Hwanel, writer and director of Saw and Insidious, entered into talks with Lionsgate to write and direct the adaptation. However, when Lionsgate officially announced the project in August of the same year, Hwanel's involvement is absent. This was the first instance where the public was given some uncertainty over the film's direction. To describe the timeline of events that kicked off the script, I will break it down into 4 key dates. First, April of 2016. Aaron Berg, who is now working on a G.I. Joe film, begins writing an R-rated take on Borderlands, sticking to the violence and gore that helps make the Borderlands games entertaining. So, it's safe to assume Berg had a vision to stick to the roots of the video game and make a film true to its source, right? Well, in a later interview with EW, Aaron Berg did state, "I don't think at any point any of the above-the-line people, including myself, thought that the right play was for it to be an R-rated movie." Second, in June of 2018, Oren Uziel, who wrote Cloverfield Paradox, Mortal Kombat, and The Lost City, has now replaced Aaron and is taking over scripting duties. Just 2 years later, we jump into date number 3, February of 2020. This was the year Lionsgate announces that director Eli Roth from movies like Green Inferno, Hostel, and Cabin Fever is going to take the wheel, with Craig Mazin from Chernobyl and The Last of Us as a screenwriter. Fourthly, sometime early in 2021, Mazin's script underwent massive rewrites from Jewel Taylor and Tony Redmayne, from They Cloned Tyrone to Eli Roth himself taking a shot at it, making even further adjustments. Finally, in April of 2021, a plot is released. The film also had a star-studded cast that earlier in pre-production consisted of Cate Blanchett as Lilith and Kevin Hart as Roland. Then, between January and April of 2021, the rest of the cast was introduced: Jack Black as Claptrap, Ariana Greenblatt as Tiny Tina, Florian Munteanu as Krieg, Jamie Lee Curtis as Tannis, and Edgar Ramirez as Atlas, who was an original villain made for the film. And in June 22nd, 2021, filming wraps. We don't necessarily know when the movie decided to go from an R rating to a PG-13 rating. However, in an interview with Screen Rant, the film's stunt coordinator, Jimmy O.D., essentially stated that the graphic scenes with exploding heads and severed feet were cut to secure a PG-13 rating. In January 2023, 2 weeks of reshoots followed, directed by Tim Miller, with Zach Olkwich writing, due to Roth's schedule conflicting with his horror film to be released later in the year, Thanksgiving. This all takes us to August 9th, 2024, when the film is finally released. Upon its screening, Rotten Tomatoes rates the film at 0%, now standing at a solid 10. As of September 2024, the film made $30 million, with a production budget of $115 million and a marketing and distribution budget of $30 million. The choice of making a highly violent video game film adaptation and not making it to the level of violence or expecting to be R-rated really excluded some of the essence of the game. Your screenwriter decides to wipe their name from any involvement with the movie about a year before its release date. The miscasting of many of the characters, especially Kevin Hart, who had ideas of Roland being this big, serious character, but the writing took him into a more lax and sometimes comedic character. These conflicting characteristics made the character confusing to understand and frankly forgettable. The many changes in direction and numerous rewrites made the film what it is today, another bland and lifeless take on a beloved video game. I have no doubt the Borderlands film had good intentions during its inception. However, going from a video game to the big screen has proven time and time again to be a huge challenge. A challenge that comes with its own set of hurdles. Some work, some unfortunately don't. Even with its star-studded cast, the Borderlands film faced the harsh reality of releasing a movie based on a very popular franchise and not taking into consideration those who built it, the fans. In the end, all I wish is that someday far in the future a studio that cares about making a faithful adaptation picks this franchise back up and makes a film worthy of the title Borderlands.